Game of Thrones was a story that merged the narratives and stories of multiple interesting characters, but most fans would agree that Jon Snow was the show's heart and soul, so it was all the more crushing just how bad his character assassination was in Season 8. And now, even the GOT prequel has poked fun at it. In today's video, we'll explain how and go over some interesting bits of foreshadowing. Let's dive right in. First off, here's how House of the Dragon mocked Jon Snow. Episode 7 of House of the Dragon snuck in a clever reference to Jon Snow's most hated line from Season 8 of Game of Thrones. This was, of course, the "I don't want it" line that he repeated 100 times over the course of just a few episodes. The prequel has made it so Jon isn't the only to have said this line. Almost 200 years ago, before Jon was even born, the young Lucerys Velaryon was saying it too. In the episode when his grandsire, Corlys Velaryon, mentioned how young Luke would one day inherit Driftmark, the young princess gave us a sad nod to Jon. That said, unlike Jon, his reasons for declining the position were quite different. Luke stated that if he were to become the Lord of Driftmark, that'd mean that all of his family would have already died, notably Corlys and Lyanna. It's clear that the young Targaryen was struggling with the idea of losing his family and those near and dear to him. They were attending the funeral of his aunt, Lyanna Velaryon, so it's not too surprising that all the doom and gloom affected Luke. This is quite different from why Jon made this dialogue a part of every page of his Westerosi dictionary. The reason why Jon repeated constantly in Season 8 was that he didn't want to betray Dany and take the crown from her. Next, there's a reason why the line is even more ironic than you'd think. One of the main reasons fans got a nice laugh out of seeing Lucerys say the iconic Jon Snow line was because it's even more ironic in his case. This is because Jon was actually a trueborn Targaryen, but he was raised to believe he was a In reality, Jon did have the rightful claim to the Iron Throne. Him saying that he didn't want it made a bit more sense in the sense that he was actually rejecting his birthright. He truly didn't want it, and he could have given it to him, but he still rejected it. Young Luke, on the other hand, has literally no claim on Driftmark whatsoever, despite what his last name may be, as he's got no real Valyrian blood flowing through him. Driftmark should have instead gone to Lyanna's daughter, Baela Targaryen, or even Corlys' brother, Vaemond Velaryon. But if there's one thing we've learned from Episode 8 of House of the Dragon, it's that openly making a statement can cause you to lose your head. So let's just let Lucerys play the role of a Velaryon, shall we? In Game of Thrones, Jon ended up surrendering all his titles and claims to the throne after he killed Daenerys. He got sent to the wall, but Luke got to keep all his titles. Quite ironic how the trueborn Targaryen lost everything while the bastard kept Driftmark, isn't it? That said, does Lucerys eventually get to inherit Driftmark? One similarity that's shared between Jon and Luke is that neither of the two gets to become either kings or lords. While Luke never surrendered his titles as Jon did, he still ended up dying before he could become the Lord of the Tides. Rhaenyra's son is one of the first major deaths in the upcoming Targaryen civil war. The young Targaryen is confronted by his uncle Aemond Targaryen while at Storm's End to recruit the Baratheons to Rhaenyra's cause. Aemond challenged Luke to a fight as payback for Lucerys taking out Aemond's eye when they were kids. Lucerys informed his uncle that he was sent to Storm's End as an envoy, and not a knight. But that didn't stop Aemond from flying in on Vhagar, attacking and killing the young prince in the process. After Luke's death, Driftmark goes through Laenor to his youngest son, Joffrey Velaryon, who also happens to be a by the way, but the young prince never got to ascend to the position of the Lord of the Tides either. All of Rhaenyra's children with Laenor end up dying in the Targaryen Civil War. Lord Corlys died shortly after the Dance of the Dragons ended in the books, and his successor ended up being Laenor's bastard son, Aelin Velaryon. The books subtly hinted at the fact that Aelin is actually Corlys' bastard and not Laenor's. Rhaenyra does end up legitimizing Aelin, and he married Baela Targaryen. Plus, could Jon Snow's sequel potentially fix his character assassination? When Game of Thrones ended, many fans wanted HBO to redo the entire 7th and 8th seasons, but with new showrunners. It was so poorly received that people even created petitions to have it redone. While it was always obvious that this would never happen, it seems that HBO might just do the next best thing. With their upcoming sequels and prequels, they seem to fix the large hole that was left in George R.R. Martin's fantastical world, one story at a time. In that sense, we think it's likely that the upcoming Snow sequel could try to fix the character character's conclusion too. In Game of Thrones, Jon made some of the biggest sacrifices out of any character. Despite this, in the end, he lost almost everything and had a conclusion that some fans felt didn't feel right. It's possible that with this upcoming show, the writers may want to right the wrongs they made with Game of Thrones' final season and give Jon the proper farewell that he so rightly deserves. Let's just hope he doesn't end up saying, "I don't want it," again. Moving on, let's discuss 10 of the biggest bits of Game of Thrones foreshadowing. House of the Dragon has some amazing callbacks to its predecessor, and we've compiled a list of the 10 best ones so far. Starting off at number 10, it's the cat's paw dagger. This weapon played a crucial role in Game of Thrones, as it's the blade used in an attempt to kill Bran Stark. It's been through quite a few conflicts across the history of Westeros, including the Dance of the Dragons. At number 9, we have the fate of House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon opened with an ominous quote that said that the only thing that could tear it was itself. And this was seen even in Thrones when Dany killed her spoiled brother Viserys. Up next at number 8, we've got an interesting parallel. In Game of Thrones, the quietest characters are often the most deadly. We saw this with Littlefinger and Varys, and now keeping that tradition alive in the prequel is Larys. He's a worthy contender for the silent but violent category of characters. Then at number 7, it's violent weddings. Is it even a Westerosi wedding if someone doesn't die? The hit HBO show has a history of violent weddings, with both the red and the purple weddings being bloodbaths. And in the prequel, the fan-titled Green Wedding also resulted in Laenor's lover, Joffrey Lonmouth, getting killed. Moving on to number 6, it's the Curse of Harrenhal. The prequel kept alive the long-lasting legend of the Curse of Harrenhal. These cursed ruins were seen in Thrones too, and in House of the Dragon, we got to see the legend claim the lives of Harwin Strong and his father Lionel. Plus, for number 5, we've got Lannister traditions. The Lannister traditions of always repaying your debts seem to exist even 200 years before the main show. In the prequel, we saw Jason Lannister repeat similar words. For our number 4 spot, we've got what it means to be a good king. In the main series, Tywin talked to Tommen about what it means to be a righteous king. He mentioned how things aren't black and white, and this is something that can be noted through Viserys' rule too. He's arguably one of the biggest culprits behind the Dance of the Dragons, mainly because of his kind and weak nature. Our number 3 spot goes to the fate of the small folk. One notable foreshadowing seen across both shows is how the small folk are often the losers, regardless of who wins the throne. We've seen how people in Flea Bottom were the victims of Dany's relentless attack on King's Landing. Similarly, the small folk of Westeros are the ones who take the biggest hits because of the Dance of the Dragons. Plus, at number 2, we've got Corley's iconic line. The sea snake mentioned in House of the Dragon how in the end, history doesn't remember the blood, it remembers names. This mindset is quite similar to something Tywin Lannister believed in Game of Thrones. He pursued the legacy of his family over their well-being, just like Corlys. Finally, our number 1 spot goes to the Song of Ice and Fire. The biggest bit of foreshadowing is also the name of George R.R. Martin's book series. It's the dream of Aegon the Conqueror, which he called A Song of Ice and Fire. While this was mentioned in House of Dragon, it isn't until 200 years later in Game of Thrones that we finally got to see this dream finally come true. That's a wrap for this video. Do you think Jon Snow's character assassination got mocked in the prequel series? Comment below, give this video a thumbs up, and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.